Hello, my name is Beck and welcome to a spoiler-free discussion about Brandon Sanderson's novellas. He's written a couple that were just him and they vary in his writing career, so at the beginning and then in the middle, I reckon. And then also he's written a few collaborations, so I wanted to talk about all of those and my general thoughts and feelings because I think it's interesting to start a discussion like this and I would like to hear other people's opinions in the comments. If you have spoilers that you specifically want to mention, just put spoiler in your comment and that'll be fine because I don't want to accidentally spoil someone when they're reading the comments, but I would like to have as full of a discussion as possible. So without further ado, let's jump into this video. Firstly, I want to discuss the three novellas that I have read that immediately come to mind that are just written by Sanderson himself and they're not collaborations. So the first one is Mitosis, then we've got Snapshot, and then as well as that we have Perfect State. So Perfect State, I believe, was written first out of all of these three, but I haven't delved into specific dates, so I may be a little bit awry with that. It's a sci-fi novella that I read recently and I personally gave it 3 stars. It's about this guy who basically rules his own reality and it is a simulation, so it really invokes those thoughts of agency and decision making and what choices are your own if you are living in a simulation. So it is really interesting in terms of the themes of it, but the way that Sanderson wrote it, it didn't really make me particularly excited just because of the way he wrote character. I think he's really grown with writing character. These characters felt just very cardboard cutouty and I wasn't particularly attached to them. I was more attached to the ideas. So I think for what it was, he did very well in terms of the theme and ideas and the world building, which is a natural skill of his anyway, but I don't think he really got the characters down very well. And I think that really changes across his later novellas, especially in Mitosis, because that is a novella that comes after Steelheart, and that is his young adult dystopian series, and that has epics who are like superheroes, but when they get their powers, they turn evil. And so it's about this guy, David, who wants to take out revenge on Steelheart for murdering his father. So Steelheart is the all-powerful epic that doesn't really have a weakness. He's kind of like a Superman kind of figure, but obviously not good. And so David's like, I don't stand for this guy, I'm going to exact revenge, and he joins the Human Reckoners who are taking out epics, and epics have a very individualized weakness and it's their only weakness, but it is naturally really hard to discover. So David is trying to find Steelheart's weakness and therefore kill him, and there are obviously more epics than Steelheart. Mitosis is one of them, and so we get a little novella of David and Mitosis, and I like the way that Mitosis was executed in terms of character. I think because David was already in a novel, he was very fleshed out already, so when I was reading Mitosis I really could connect to him. I didn't really love necessarily the story, but I enjoyed it for what it was. I think I gave it a 3 or 4 stars. I definitely enjoyed it more than Perfect State, but as far as novellas go, it didn't really peak for me, but his novella Snapshot really did. I loved Snapshot. And Snapshot, again, is written just by Sanderson himself. And he put these two guys into a detective kind of story, but it's in a sci-fi universe. So in this world, it's like our world, but they can go into a snapshot, which is literally a snapshot, like a day that has recently passed, and they can go in there to solve crimes. So they're in there trying to solve this murder or this robbery or something, and these two detective characters really have a good play off each other. There's a really great plot twist. I think it's executed really well in such a short space of time. I found that I was connecting to the characters, I was connecting to their drive and their motivation, the world building and the storytelling and the pace. I think out of all of them, Snapshot is my favourite, and I think that's the one that he's written the most recently. He's also got The Many Lives of Stephen Leeds, which is his novella series, but I like the Snapshot book a lot better because it was executed much quicker in a much shorter space of time, whereas the Stephen Leeds books were naturally going to follow on from each other. So even though they were novella length, they were still a series. So I think Snapshot by far is the standout for me, and it's one of my favorites by him. But then we go into his novella collaborations, and I don't really know where I sit with his collaborations. I think it's too early to tell and too early for me personally to be skeptical because I've enjoyed things and I've disliked things. So let's talk first about the original, which is his collaboration with Mary Robinette Kowal, and she's a sci-fi writer. I love her work. I've only read the first book, The Calculating Stars, by her. I haven't really read much more of her stuff, but I do really like her on the Writing Excuses podcast with Brandon Sanderson. She's excellent. She has so many ideas. She's very intelligent, and I love the way she collaborated with Sanderson because his not his flaw, but one of the things that he works on quite significantly and that has definitely changed based on his Perfect State novella to his Snapshot novella is character. I think character is what he can work on the most, and I think it's a part of his novels that while I connect to the characters reading the books, I think initially it was a bit harder for me to connect to the characters because they just needed more work done. Like, I love Mistborn, but I'm adoring The Way of Kings and the Stormlight Archive because I just love those characters so much more. So in terms of the character in the original, I think Brandon Sanderson really benefited from Muriel Burnett Kowal's input there, and I like the storytelling as well. I didn't love so much the execution of it, like the plot twist and the themes. I think they got a bit muddied along the way, and I think if Brandon was writing them by himself, I'm not sure if it would have come across better. Like, they came across quite well in Snapshot, so I'm really not sure how that goes. But as far as a collaboration is concerned, I think I gave that 4 stars. I enjoyed it. That was a good one. But when I come to his more recent collaborations, like Lux, Readon, and Sunreach, for example, so his 2 Skyward novellas and then his 1 Reckoner's novella, there are things that I liked and disliked about both. Neither of them or none of them really felt like a Brandon Sanderson work. They felt like they were heavily influenced and collaborated with by the other authors. So I was talking to my partner about this and he said, of course they would be. Why would he have so much time to dedicate to novellas when he's writing all of these other major things? But I know from his videos, from Sanderson's videos, that he goes back and forth on writing his drafts. So he would have a lot of input. It's not like they were ghostwritten or anything. He definitely had deep input in them. So they still feel kind of like him, but then they feel different at the same time. So when it came to Lux, there were certain parts of it, and I don't want to talk too much about the plot aspects and stuff because it is the 4th installment in the Reckoners series, but it's the 1st installment in the Texas Reckoners series. So technically it's the first book, but it has characters as a throwback to the Steelheart books. So it will spoil you if I talk in depth. I have a separate review for it if you're interested. So Lux felt like another author, and it didn't feel like Brandon Sanderson. There were little nuggets and elements of it in terms of the world building, but the love interest was definitely not Sanderson. I don't think he does love interests very well, and I actually quite enjoyed the romance subplot in Lux because it felt natural and organic rather than just shoehorned together, which sometimes it feels like with Sanderson, but this one I feel executed that quite well. In terms of the plot and the pace, I think Sanderson really balances his pacing very well against his plot. And for Lux, I just felt like it kept going and going and going, even though it was a novella and it's supposed to be short. So I definitely prefer like the Sanderlanche of Brandon Sanderson's pacing compared to his collaboration pacing. I don't think it's done as well as it could be, and I think it's something that they're probably figuring out as they go, because with each collaboration there is each new creative skill and a way of working that needs to find a good balance. So I don't think it was quite found in Lux. I think it could have potential to be strengthened and tightened in the future, and that leads me into Sunreach and Readon. So Sunreach and Readon, I gave both of them about 3.5 stars each. Lux I gave a 4, and obviously I enjoyed Lux more, but Readon and Sunreach were trying to do things that I felt were successful in some parts but just weren't quite there in others. So especially in Sunreach there was a romance subplot, and there was a romance subplot in Readon as well, but I think it was done better in Readon than it was in Sunreach. I like the way that Sanderson teases out his romance. So he doesn't immediately push characters together. It's a very, very slow burning, if it is there at all. And I like that in a book. I don't like a massive drive for romance. And that's probably why I don't read as much YA anymore. I've kind of aged out of that category, but I will go back for certain things. And Skyward is one of those things. I loved Skyward because it didn't have a strong romance in it. It had a lot of character work and growth and unity in it. And while that is not lacking, it's just a bit diluted with romance. So there was a strong romance subplot in Sunreach that I didn't like, and I think that was introduced by Jancy Patterson, who is the co-author. So in terms of what they were doing together, I didn't like that, but I think in the future they could have more potential to be even better, because I liked Readon more than I liked Sunreach, and Readon had less of a romance subplot. Even though it was still kind of a little bit there, it was more subtle, and I liked that better. So the collaborations in general are already getting better with Jancy Patterson, because we can see from book 1 to book 2 what the progression is like. And so I'm looking forward to novella 3 after Cytonic comes out, because hopefully that will be even better in terms of character. But again, with the pacing, it's felt like they were really long, even though they were novellas. So I think Brandon Sanderson does his pacing, his world building, and his plotting incredibly well. And when there are other authors involved, that feels really diluted to me. And so the book naturally feels like it stretches longer. I think there needs to be a better balance there. And I also don't like the romance, as I've said. I feel like it needs to be a little bit more subtle, and that was definitely starting to come to a head in Readon. So I think it's possible. There can be collaborations with Sanderson that I enjoy quite a lot, but I think it's just very early, like teething stages at the moment. And I've seen a lot of people go, no, I hate it. I hate it. I gave it 1 star. I didn't like it. I'm a true Sanderson fan and I like his writing alone. I don't like it involved with other authors. And you know, that's fair enough. If you like your particular favorite author for their writing and you don't want them to collaborate, that's completely subjective to you. I think it's got potential and I'm willing to try it, but in terms of how far I'm willing to go, that's another question. So I don't know how many author collaborations he's got going on in the future. I would be interested to see who he's going to collaborate with. In the past, obviously, I've enjoyed his novellas and I've enjoyed his collaborations to a particular point. So I'm thinking positive. I'm trying not to be negative, because I don't want to go, no, I hate this. I'm never going to invest in that at all. I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm going to write it off completely and just skip them, because I do want to give them a try. I think I enjoyed the Skyward novellas enough, but they weren't amazing. So I'm hoping that the last novella that they're writing for the moment for 2021 is actually good, because I really want to give it a 4 or 5 stars. So far it's only coasted though, because of the pacing and plot things. Like I said, there were cataclysmic things that happened at the end of Readon, but I felt like it was very rushed. So I really wanted to love it, but I didn't quite get to that point for me. So I do really want to love his novellas is really the conclusion here, and they haven't quite reached that point yet for me. So if you loved Brandon Sanderson's novellas, or if you liked his collaborations and his earlier novellas, or vice versa, let me know what you enjoyed. I would really be interested to know. But thank you so much for watching this video. Come chat to me down in the comments, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.